Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed,
where we break down the world's news from every angle.
from the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Nina,
And I'm Jules.
and we'll be your hosts for today's news collection.
Welcome, deep divers. Sometimes it feels like the world's news cycle is just this constantly overflowing fire hose, right?
Yeah.
Every headline is screaming for your attention, pulling you in like a dozen different directions, from these escalating conflicts that seem to redraw maps overnight, to the quiet hum of new technologies demanding ever more power. And even the, subtle shifts within our own societies. It's not just a lot, it's a whirlwind.
It really is.
And honestly, it can be pretty overwhelming trying to keep up, let alone trying to truly understand it all.
Yeah.
That's precisely why we're here.
Indeed. And what becomes strikingly clear when you look at these stories together is how often these seemingly disparate global narratives are, in fact, deeply interconnected.
Right.
A ripple in one corner of the world can absolutely create a wave in another. And understanding those complex connections is really the key to making sense of the modern global landscape. It's about seeing the threads that link everything from, say, climate policy to geopolitical flashpoints.
Absolutely. So today on the deep dive, our mission is to cut through all that noise. We've sifted through, a mountain of sources from just the past week. Articles covering everything from intense geopolitical conflicts and the pressing impacts of climate change to surprising tech innovations and some profound societal shifts. Our goal, it's to extract the most crucial insights, the genuinely surprising facts, and maybe those aha moments that will empower you, our listener, to become genuinely well-informed without that feeling of information overload. Think of us as your expert guides navigating the complexities so you don't have to feel overwhelmed.
And our commitment is to provide context and diverse perspectives, making sure you grasp not just what is happening, but why it matters and, what its significance is quickly and thoroughly. We're looking beyond the surface to try and uncover the deeper currents.
And we've got quite the journey ahead of us today. We'll be scrutinizing the urgent humanitarian crisis unfolding in Haiti, delving into the escalating tensions in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, exploring the environmental challenges brought on by our insatiable appetite for artificial intelligence, and examining some truly unique policy changes making waves internationally.
A lot to cover.
Definitely. So lean back, settle in, because this deep dive is custom tailored to help you quickly grasp the significance of these stories without feeling overwhelmed, giving you that vital edge of understanding. Let's unpack this.
Okay.
Let's open with a profoundly significant and frankly pretty alarming development in the Middle East. This past week presented a rare and very visible display of collective unity from the Arab and Islamic world. And it was directly sparked by a truly grave incident. An emergency summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that's the OIC and the Arab League, convened in Doha, Qatar on September 9th.
Right.
Now, this wasn't just a routine meeting. It was called in direct response to an Israeli attack on a Hamas office located right there in Qatar's capital, an incident that tragically resulted in 6 fatalities.
8 people killed.
Yeah. And this wasn't just some border skirmish. It was an attack in what's considered a neutral state, impacting the very capital of a significant regional player. That feels like a major step.
It absolutely is. And a crucial element worth highlighting here is the unprecedented force and unity of the condemnation that emerged from this summit.
Okay.
The Qatari Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman bin Yassin Al Thani, he did not mince words. He called for prompt accountability from Israel and was exceptionally sharp in his criticism of what he termed the dual standards of the international community regarding these actions.
Dual standards. That's strong language.
It is. And this accusation, it's not entirely new, but its prominence in such a unified statement suggests a sort of growing frustration across these nations regarding perceived inconsistencies in international law and diplomatic responses. It's a point that, for many, fundamentally undermines global efforts toward perceived impartiality.
I can see that. And sources like Al Jazeera reported this wasn't an isolated incident either, right?
That's correct. They detailed that Israel's actions represent a significant escalation in its broader military campaign, having targeted 6 different nations in a mere 72 hours.
6 nations in 72 hours. That's extraordinary. The pace of it.
It's a rapid escalation, yes. And to place this in a broader context, the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, was established back in 1969. It's a colossal organization, 57 Muslim-majority countries, representing something like 26% of the global population.
Wow.
And the Arab League, in turn, has 22 member states, collectively representing approximately 500 million people.
Huge numbers.
Both organizations have historically been pretty consistent advocates for Palestinian rights and have consistently pushed for international scrutiny against perceived injustices in the region.
Right.
So the very act of them convening an emergency summit in a neutral country like Qatar following a direct attack on its capital,
Right.
it profoundly underscores the gravity of this particular escalation.
It really does.
It signals a heightened level of shared concern and a stronger push for a unified diplomatic front than we've perhaps observed in quite some time. It reflects a deep collective disquiet.
That makes the urgency really palpable. But it compels us to ask, what's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's position amidst all this international outcry? And what are the specific implications for regional stability when his stance appears so, well, confrontational?
Indeed. Prime Minister Netanyahu, speaking in a joint press conference with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he unequivocally asserted Israel's inherent right to defend itself beyond its own border.
Beyond its borders. Okay.
And he vowed further strikes against Hamas leaders, reinforcing his government's longstanding doctrine of proactive national security.
So doubling down, essentially.
Pretty much. This position stands in direct contrast to the calls for de-escalation and accountability from the OIC and Arab League, creating an extremely challenging and, frankly, fraught diplomatic landscape. The U.S.-Israel relationship plays a foundational role here, of course. Consistent U.S. support for Israel's right to self-defense is a cornerstone of American foreign policy.
Right.
This dynamic creates a delicate and often contentious balance for international diplomacy, as efforts to mediate or de-escalate must navigate these deeply rooted, differing national security perspectives.
So it's complex.
Very. And the real insight here isn't just the heightened risk of instability, which is clear. It's perhaps the perilous paradox of this unified Arab-Islamic condemnation. While it's rhetorically strong, the historical lack of concrete, coordinated action kind of undermines its deterrent effect.
Ah, so words versus actions.
Exactly. It potentially signals to Israel that verbal pushback alone won't necessarily translate into tangible consequences, thus maybe perpetuating the cycle of escalation rather than disrupting it.
Speaking of contentious issues and rhetoric, we saw an article from Trends in the News. The title itself was incredibly stark, provocative even, making the Palestinians go away.
Yeah, that's a charged title.
It really is. The article takes a critical perspective on current political maneuvers, which it claims are endorsed by U.S. President Donald Trump, aiming to address the Palestinian presence in the region.
Right. And a crucial element worth highlighting here is the profound historical context this article touches upon. Debates regarding land rights, self-determination, international law. These have been absolutely central to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for decades.
Of course.
The very notion of relocating Palestinian populations is deeply contentious because it strongly evokes historical narratives of displacement, particularly the Nakba of 1948, and it often fails to address the underlying issues of justice, human rights, and the internationally recognized right of return.
So this article frames these maneuvers very critically.
It does. This particular viewpoint from Trends in the News frames these political maneuvers as attempts to sort of circumvent rather than genuinely resolve fundamental historical grievances and human rights concerns.
Right.
It underscores precisely why any such proposition would be met with significant criticism and resistance from Palestinian advocates, human rights organizations, and, frankly, much of the international community.
Okay.
It's a perspective that sees these strategies as fundamentally aiming to change demographic realities rather than achieve a just political settlement.
And while all this high-level diplomacy and political maneuvering is happening, the immediate humanitarian crisis on the ground in Gaza just continues to intensify.
Tragically, yes.
France 24 reports on the devastating impact of intensified bombings. Survivors struggling with severe shortages of food, potable water, medical supplies, essential infrastructure, hospitals, schools, dismantled or just unusable. You hear about these details and it hits you in the gut.
The human toll is truly staggering, and it's a constant, urgent refrain from the international community. Calls continue for an immediate ceasefire and a significant increase in humanitarian aid.
But is aid getting through?
That's the challenge. The destruction or dismantling of vital infrastructure like hospitals means the immediate needs of the injured and sick are often gravely unmet. This just exacerbates the suffering in an already densely populated and besieged area. For instance, reports indicate that critical water desalination plants and sewage treatment facilities, absolutely essential for public health, have been damaged. This leads to widespread disease risk.
A secondary crisis, basically.
Exactly. This is a critical point that humanitarian organizations consistently highlight as an urgent priority, even amidst ongoing military operations. And their pleas for unhindered access are often met with immense logistical and security challenges.
But despite all this condemnation from Arab leaders in this dire humanitarian situation, France 24 also highlighted something crucial, that these leaders struggled to actually devise concrete action plans at their recent meeting.
Right.
It's like everyone agrees there's a massive problem, but deciding how to collectively fix it is an entirely different and seemingly insurmountable challenge. It does make you think about the difficulty of maintaining a united front, doesn't it? Even the strongest alliances can be, well, complicated.
That's the core question here, isn't it? Why this struggle for concrete action? When we place this in a broader context, it often boils down to contrasting national interests and, frankly, divergent political agendas within the Arab League itself.
Okay.
While there's strong shared outrage and a deep-seated solidarity with the Palestinian cause, the member states themselves maintain diverse relationships with Western powers, varying economic dependencies, distinct internal political pressures.
So everyone has their own angle.
Precisely. For example, some Gulf states might prioritize burgeoning economic ties with the United States, or even quiet normalization efforts with Israel. Others, like Egypt, might prioritize border security and internal stability above all else.
Right.
This inherent complexity often leads to resolutions that are strong in condemnation, but ultimately lighter on actionable, unified steps. It vividly demonstrates the persistent challenge of achieving truly cohesive action, even amidst shared geopolitical concerns.
So, as we try to understand this complex situation, it's not just about what's said, but what isn't done, and the intricate reasons behind that inaction. That can be just as impactful.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder about the long-term prospects for peace.
Absolutely. The immediate implication is a heightened, sustained risk of regional instability, given the continued military actions and the unified but, as you highlighted, often frustrated response from Arab and Islamic nations. International pressure, while constant from the UN and various countries, remains a critical, though often fragmented, force. Its effectiveness is severely limited by these differing national interests and the geopolitical alliances of major global powers.
So, no easy answers.
Far from it. The struggle for a peaceful resolution will continue to be an uphill battle. It requires not just a cessation of hostilities, but a fundamental re-engagement with historical grievances, land rights, aspirations for self-determination. It's a complex, multi-layered conflict with deep historical roots. And without addressing those foundational issues in a comprehensive manner, any peace will likely remain tragically fragile.
Okay, moving to another critical geopolitical flashpoint. Let's turn our attention to the evolving dynamics between Russia, Ukraine, and, well, the ever-present shadow of NATO.
Right.
Europe is certainly in the middle of a significant strategic reevaluation. And one particularly interesting perspective comes from Professor Schlevat's Compass number 25, which was reported by RT. This piece critiques what it terms old Europe's military policies, arguing for something quite intriguing called divergent meta-thinking.
Divergent meta-thinking sounds academic.
It does sound a bit deep, yeah. But essentially, it's about moving beyond outdated patterns and, entrenched beliefs to find truly new responses to the complex security landscape. This includes potentially fostering a constructive relationship with Russia instead of what it describes as continuous militarization.
What truly stands out about this is that concept, divergent meta-thinking. It essentially means stepping back and fundamentally challenging the core assumptions that have historically driven current geopolitical strategies.
Okay, break that down a bit.
Instead of reacting instinctively or relying on old frameworks that may no longer serve present realities, it encourages a deep reflection on why certain approaches are taken, and then an imaginative exploration of genuinely new possibilities. For instance, an old framework might be the reflexive assumption that increased militarization is the only viable response to perceived threats.
Right.
Or that certain diplomatic channels are permanently closed. Divergent meta-thinking, in contrast, might explore novel, perhaps non-military, leverage points or test unconventional diplomatic overtures in areas of mutual low-stakes interest, even with adversarial states.
As a pathway to de-escalation.
Exactly. As a pathway to de-escalation and maybe a more stable security environment for Europe. It's about breaking free from what the article likens to, well, hamsters on a wheel stuck in repetitive, often ineffective cycles.
So, like in a chess game, where everyone's just playing the same old opening moves and expecting a different outcome, we need some truly new strategies.
That's the idea, yes.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting and controversial. American economist Jeffrey Sachs has made a striking claim. He alleges that French President Emmanuel Macron privately acknowledged NATO as a significant instigator of the Ukraine conflict. This, of course, starkly contradicts Macron's public stance, which, like that of many Western leaders, places the blame squarely on Russia. This claim was also reported by RT.
Yeah, this compels us to consider the stark differences in historical narratives surrounding the conflict. Sachs's viewpoint, as reported by RT, suggests that the conflict's deeper roots trace back to a 2014 U.S.-facilitated change of government in Ukraine.
Right, the Maidan events.
And NATO's consistent eastward expansion, which Russia has long perceived as a direct security threat to its borders. He argues that if Ukraine were to commit to neutrality and NATO ceased its expansion, a viable path to peace could emerge.
Okay, that's one narrative.
That's one narrative. However, it is absolutely crucial to present the counter-narrative, which is the official Western stance. This stance blames Russia solely for the current war, asserting it was an unprovoked act of aggression and a violation of a sovereign nation's territorial integrity.
Two very different stories.
Fundamentally different interpretations of the conflict's origins, yes.
Yeah.
And understanding both is essential to grasping its full, multifaceted scope without, endorsing either perspective ourselves.
Right. Impartiality is key here. Now, in a surprising turn of events that might signal shifting relations, the Zapad 2025 military exercises in Belarus involving Russia saw U.S. military officers among the international observers.
That is interesting.
RT reported on this, noting it as a sign of potentially improving U.S.-Belarus relations. These drills, running from September 12th to 16th, involved 23 countries, including some NATO members. Both Russia and Belarus consistently maintain these exercises are defensive, aiming to reduce regional tensions. What signal does that send? Is it a strategic olive branch or something else entirely?
Well, this is truly a complex and multifaceted approach to diplomacy. It showcases that intricate dance between deterrence and de-escalation. The very presence of U.S. observers, even at what are essentially large-scale Russian-Belarusian military exercises, it does align with broader diplomatic efforts from President Donald Trump's administration aimed at restoring ties with Russia and Belarus.
Okay.
The sources specifically mention recent prisoner releases linked to discussions around U.S. sanctions relief as part of this broader effort.
So there's context there.
There is. While the drills themselves are often viewed with deep suspicion by Western nations as rehearsals for aggression, the participation of international observers, including from NATO members, can also be framed as a transparency measure.
Or maybe something more subtle.
Or perhaps more subtly, yes, a channel for low-level diplomatic engagement that keeps lines of communication open even amidst significant geopolitical friction. It highlights the intricate, often paradoxical nature of current international relations.
But then, adding another layer of tension, you have Poland urging NATO to establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine.
A no-fly zone.
Yeah. This call came due to heightened concerns over Russian drone activity, especially after drones reportedly entered Romanian airspace. The Washington Post covered this. And it certainly highlights the immediate danger posed by these drones and the profound dilemma it presents for neighboring NATO nations.
This compels us to consider the immense implications and potential risks of such a move. A NATO-backed no-fly zone over Ukraine would, without question, be considered an act of direct military intervention by Russia.
How so?
Because it would require NATO aircraft to enforce the zone, potentially engaging directly with Russian aircraft. This is precisely why there's been a significant and intense debate within NATO on such measures.
Right.
Most members prioritize avoiding a direct military confrontation between NATO and Russia due to the catastrophic escalation potential.
Understand.
The reports of drones entering Romanian airspace, Romania being a NATO member, add a critical and immediate layer of urgency and concern for collective security under Article 5. But the threshold for direct military action against Russia by NATO remains extraordinarily high.
Okay. And adding to the economic pressures and potential for escalation, Russia explicitly warned European nations that it would retaliate against any state that attempts to seize its frozen assets.
Ah, yes, the frozen assets issue.
Estimated to be around $350 billion to support Ukraine. This very direct warning was reported by Yahoo.
Yeah, placing this in a broader context, this warning profoundly underscores the economic and legal complexities involved. Seizing sovereign state assets is a highly contentious move under international law, and it could lead to a severe escalation of economic warfare with unpredictable global repercussions. Russia has made it unequivocally clear it would view this as an act of aggression, threatening immediate reciprocal measures. Well, this could involve seizing foreign assets within Russia, impacting international financial systems, and further catastrophically straining diplomatic relations.
So a major economic fight.
Potentially, yes. The debate is ongoing and intense in Europe about the legality, the wisdom, and the potential fallout of such a seizure. They're weighing the understandable desire to support Ukraine against the potential for unpredictable and deeply damaging retaliatory actions that could have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved.
So we're witnessing this incredibly delicate balance between deterrence and de-escalation, the profound impact of internal political narratives on international relations, and yeah, that looming shadow of broader conflict. It's a truly precarious and multi-layered situation on all fronts.
It absolutely is constant tension.
Now let's pivot our focus to Haiti, a nation tragically grappling with a humanitarian crisis that shamefully often feels overlooked by the global community.
It often does, unfortunately.
UN News reported on a brutal gang attack in Cabaret, Haiti on September 11th. It killed at least 40 individuals, including women and children.
Horrific.
This horrific event is part of a much larger ongoing wave of violence where armed groups essentially dominate Port-au-Prince, the capital, and its surrounding areas. It just paints a stark picture of systemic breakdown and sheer brutality that is devastating lives daily.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres unequivocally condemned the attack, specifically highlighting the crumbling state authority
The rumbling state authority.
and the immense scale of displacement. Over 1.3 million people forced from their homes. What truly stands out about this is that it's not an isolated incident. It's a profound symptom of a larger escalating collapse of governance.
Right.
Armed gangs have aggressively stepped into the power vacuum, controlling vital areas and severely disrupting daily life for countless families. The sheer scale of the violence, combined with this breakdown of order, has absolutely profound implications for civilian safety, the delivery of essential services, and any hope for stability.
And despite this dire situation, Guterres depicted a scenario where approximately 6 million people are in desperate need of aid.
6 million.
Yet less than 10% of the $908 million requested for humanitarian assistance has actually been funded.
Less than 10%. That's shocking.
He called this situation shamefully overlooked and woefully underfunded.
And it compels us to ask a crucial question about global responsibility and, frankly, ethical obligations. The ethical implications of this severe underfunding are profound.
How so?
It means an estimated 1.7 million people may not receive any vital support, basic necessities like food, clean water, urgent medical care. The UN's relief chief has repeatedly emphasized the urgent need to drastically improve aid efforts and ensure unhindered access. Furthermore, Guterres has consistently called for expedited support for the Multinational Security Support Mission.
Right, the MSS.
Exactly, which is specifically intended to stabilize the security situation and assist the Haitian National Police. Without this robust external assistance, the capacity of local authorities to restore order and adequately protect civilians is severely limited.
So it condemns millions
To continued hardship, violence, and insecurity effectively. The lack of funding directly translates into preventable deaths and protracted suffering.
So it's a critical situation that urgently demands attention. The profound responsibility of the international community, the immense challenges of intervention in a collapsed state, and the desperately long-term prospects for Haiti's stability.
The responsibility of the international community is undeniable, particularly when we consider the complex historical context of past interventions and subsequent periods of neglect in Haiti. The challenges of intervention in a collapsed state are multifaceted. You're talking about securing the environment for aid delivery, disarming powerful gang structures, building sustainable local governance, effective security forces. It's a huge task.
From the ground up, almost.
Almost. Without a concerted, adequately funded, and long-term international effort that addresses both security and development, the long-term prospects for Haiti's stability remain grim.
And the funding gap creates a vicious cycle.
A devastating vicious cycle, yes, where violence fuels displacement and suffering, making any path to recovery incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Hashtag 1.4. South Sudan's fragile peace on the brink.
From one urgent crisis to another, let's turn our attention to South Sudan, where a fragile peace deal is reportedly on the brink of collapse.
Another deeply worrying situation.
DW reported that the country's 2018 peace agreement is under severe threat following the high-profile arrest of Vice President Riek Machar on treason charges.
Treason charges.
His opposition party, the SPLM-IO, that's the Sudan People's Liberation Movement in opposition, has gone so far as to issue a direct call for regime change.
Wow. That's escalatory language.
It really is. That's an immediate, extremely destabilizing trigger with the profound potential for a rapid return to widespread conflict threatening millions.
But what truly stands out here is how deeply rooted and historically entrenched this current tension is. Placing this in a broader context, the conflict is significantly exacerbated by deep-seated ethnic divisions.
Right, between Machar and Kiir.
Between Machar, who belongs to the NUR ethnic group, and President Salva Kiir, who is from the Dinka group. These divisions were a major defining factor in the previous devastating civil war. Crucially, key provisions of the 2018 peace agreement, things like the full integration of armed forces, the promise of national elections, have notoriously stalled or been left unfulfilled.
So the deal wasn't fully implemented.
Not effectively. This chronic lack of implementation has severely eroded trust between the factions and left critical power-sharing arrangements dangerously unaddressed. It renders the entire peace agreement incredibly vulnerable to collapse.
And the economic and social repercussions of this profound instability are already truly heartbreaking, I imagine.
They are indeed, and the situation is dire. Fears of a renewed civil war loom incredibly large, and these fears are compounded by already deteriorating economic conditions, rampant inflation, the pervasive issue of unpaid salaries for government employees, security forces.
A perfect storm, almost.
It really is. Analysts are issuing stark warnings that sidelining Machar, especially given his significant ethnic base and political influence, could further destabilize the transitional government and severely complicate any future peace negotiations.
Right.
This situation is particularly grim when you consider the historical context. The previous civil war resulted in approximately 400,000 deaths and displaced over 4 million people.
Just staggering numbers.
The country and its citizens simply cannot afford another descent into widespread chaos and violence. The most compelling aspect here, perhaps, is that the fragility of South Sudan's peace highlights a universal truth. Peace agreements aren't static documents. They're living, breathing processes that require continuous political will, compromise, and consistent implementation to survive.
So we're looking at a critical need for genuine dialogue, the devastating heavy cost of conflict on a nation already suffering immensely, and the absolutely vital role of regional and international mediators.
This compels us to consider the urgent mechanisms for preventing further catastrophic escalation. The critical need for genuine, transparent dialogue between President Kiir and Vice President Machar and their respective factions cannot be overstated. Without profound political will and open communication, the destructive cycle of distrust and conflict will undoubtedly continue. The heavy cost of conflict, not just human lives, but destroyed infrastructure, crippled livelihoods, severely stunted national development, will set the nation back for generations. Regional and international mediators like the African Union and the United Nations have an absolutely crucial role to play in facilitating these dialogues, holding parties accountable to the peace agreement, and ensuring the humanitarian response is adequately supported.
They're essential.
Their sustained engagement is, frankly, the country's best hope to prevent a catastrophic relapse into widespread civil war.
All right, let's shift gears now from global conflicts to something closer to home for some listeners, but with truly profound global implications. The artificial intelligence boom.
Right, AI.
And specifically, its very tangible impact in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. Inside Climate News reported that Pennsylvania is on the cusp of an AI boom, reminiscent of past industrial surges that reshaped the state. But here's the crucial catch. These burgeoning AI servers demand an immense amount of energy, which is already leading to projected escalations in energy bills across the state.
Yeah, the power demand is huge.
It's like another gold rush, but instead of gold, they're digging for data, and it's powered by billions of kilowatts.
That's a good analogy. And what truly stands out about this is the sheer unprecedented scale of the energy demand. Data centers, which house these powerful AI servers, are massive electricity consumers. They operate 24/7 with sophisticated cooling systems.
Right.
Senator Katie Muth has already proactively proposed the Pennsylvania Ratepayer Protection Act to directly address these escalating financial burdens on consumers.
Okay, so there's some legislative response.
There is. And the Public Utility Commission, the PUC, recently reported that data centers are already contributing an unprecedented $9.3 billion to surging electrical prices this year alone.
$9 billion. Wow.
And it's not just about general energy consumption. Data centers, particularly those using evaporative cooling, which is common and energy efficient for server farms, can draw millions of gallons of water daily from local freshwater sources.
Millions of gallons of water, too. I hadn't fully considered that.
Yes, it's not just for cooling the servers directly, but also for maintaining ambient humidity, purifying water for equipment, supporting auxiliary power generation systems. The real challenge is that these demands often strain regional water tables, especially in areas already facing drought or competing agricultural needs. And local policymakers rarely seem to factor this into initial development approvals.
So on one hand, there's this huge economic promise, but on the other, a very real environmental peril, especially considering Pennsylvania's long history with industrial pollution.
This compels us to consider a fundamental question about sustainable development. Proponents, including representatives from major tech firms like Amazon, they highlight the significant employment opportunities and substantial economic benefits these data centers could bring. However, skeptics, including former state environmental officials, issue stark warnings against repeating Pennsylvania's historical patterns of industrial pollution and environmental degradation that have accompanied past booms, coal, natural gas.
Right, history repeating itself potentially.
Potentially. There is a deeply delicate balance to strike between fostering rapid technological advancement and ensuring robust long-term environmental protection. The core concern is that these immediate economic benefits might come at a steep and irreversible environmental cost, if not managed proactively and sustainably from the outset.
And it sounds like there's quite a bit of legislative gridlock brewing in Harrisburg, the state capital, not to mention these significant, largely unaddressed concerns about water usage.
Indeed. Legislative proposals vary widely. Some aggressively seek to expedite permits for new data centers, reflecting a strong push for industrial growth. Others, like Governor Josh Shapiro's ambitious Lightning Plan, aim at promoting clean energy solutions. However, achieving bipartisan agreements on complex energy matters in Pennsylvania is notoriously challenging.
So, gridlock.
Often leading to legislative gridlock and delayed policy action, yes. Furthermore, critics consistently point to a concerning lack of comprehensive plans for effective water usage management.
The water issue again.
Yes, data centers consume vast amounts of water. This, combined with their already immense electricity needs, creates a pressing and often unaddressed environmental issue in current legislative deliberations. If we place this in a broader context, federal efforts for net zero carbon emissions and water efficiency are certainly being discussed. But industry experts remain understandably cautious, given the long history of regulatory catch-up when it comes to significant industrial environmental impacts.
So what does this all mean for that fundamental tension between technological advancement and environmental sustainability, and the profound challenges of proactive policymaking in such a rapidly evolving sector?
Well, the long-term impact on local communities and their vital resources is unquestionably substantial. The tension between technological advancement and environmental sustainability is rapidly becoming a defining challenge of our entire era.
Yeah.
The rapid pace of artificial intelligence development outstrips the often slower pace of policymaking, making it inherently difficult to implement truly proactive and comprehensive regulations.
So policy's always playing catch-up.
Often, yes. This often leads to a reactive approach, where significant environmental damage or increased consumer costs only become apparent after the fact, before adequate policies can be put in place. The challenges of proactive policymaking are immense. It requires anticipating these complex impacts, robustly integrating environmental sustainability into economic development strategies from the very outset, and ensuring the benefits of technological advancement are broadly shared, rather than the burdens falling disproportionately on consumers and local ecosystems.
So it needs a more holistic approach.
It unequivocally calls for a nuanced, integrated, and forward-thinking approach that effectively addresses both compelling economic incentives and profound ecological responsibilities.
Okay, switching to another critical environmental topic, let's talk about our precious coral reefs. They're truly the rainforests of the ocean, aren't they?
They really are vital ecosystems.
NOAA-Climate.gov reported on groundbreaking research from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that's NOAA, and the University of Miami's CEMAS, the Cooperative Institute for Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. This study reveals that staghorn coral, Acroporus cervicornis, which is an endangered species vital to marine ecosystems, exhibits dramatically reduced resilience when facing a combination of stressors, even if it can handle individual ones.
Right, the combination effects.
My aha moment here was realizing it's not just one problem, it's how they gang up on the corals. It makes intuitive sense, but seeing the research is powerful.
Exactly. What truly stands out here is this concept of a synergistic effect, which is often far more destructive than the sum of its individual parts.
Okay.
The research involved exposing 10 different genotypes of staghorn coral to elevated ammonium nitrogen, which effectively mimics agricultural runoff, and then introducing disease. The critical finding was that coral genotypes, which demonstrated resilience to high nutrients alone, became profoundly vulnerable when disease stress was added simultaneously. This compels us to ask a crucial question for conservation. Mitigating just one stressor might prove woefully insufficient if other stressors are also present and actively interacting in a damaging way. This is a fundamental shift in understanding how ecosystems collapse.
So it's a far more complex problem than simply tackling one issue at a time, isn't it? It's about the interplay.
Exactly, and that's the core insight. When we place this in a broader context, this finding expands on broader ecological understandings, such as the widely documented interplay of ocean warming and acidification exacerbating coral bleaching events.
Right, we hear a lot about bleaching.
We do. Corals might possess a certain physiological capacity to cope with a certain level of warming or a certain level of acidity individually, but when those stressors combine and interact, their resilience plummets dramatically, often leading to rapid die-offs. This is particularly concerning because coral reefs are absolutely vital ecosystems. They host a myriad of marine species, provide essential coastal protection, acting as natural breakwaters, and play a significant role in carbon sequestration. Their degradation leads to not just a decline in biodiversity, but also the loss of essential ecosystem services that benefit millions of people globally.
This sounds like it has incredibly major implications for how we need to approach coral conservation then.
Absolutely. The study strongly emphasizes the critical need for a truly multifaceted and integrated approach to coral restoration. Instead of solely focusing on single stress mitigation strategies, conservation efforts must now explicitly integrate genetic insights to enhance the metabolic resilience of coral populations to a range of stressors.
Okay, using genetics. Interesting.
Yes, this means intelligently considering how different genotypes respond not just to one isolated threat, but to complex interacting combinations. The biodiversity within coral genotypes is pivotal not just for individual coral survival, but for the collective long-term resilience of entire reef ecosystems.
Right.
This groundbreaking research profoundly challenges us to think more holistically, more dynamically, and with greater foresight about how we protect these invaluable marine habitats. Moving beyond simplistic, siloed solutions to embrace the intricate complexities of natural systems with sophisticated, integrated strategies.
Now let's talk about New York Climate Week, a crucial global gathering. Climate Change News published a deeply insightful and concerning article highlighting a pervasive issue.
Okay.
Many crucial voices from least developed countries, the LDC's nations, which are unequivocally on the front lines of the climate crisis, will be conspicuously absent.
Absent, why?
Due to U.S. travel bans and visa restrictions that have been reinstated by President Donald Trump.
Okay. Visa issues.
Yeah. Talking about climate justice without the very people experiencing the injustice firsthand. It feels like discussing a party without inviting the guests of honor. There's a profound irony there, isn't there?
There certainly is. This compels us to ask a crucial question about the very definition of genuine inclusivity in global policy. Lina Yassin, a Sudanese climate policy researcher, expressed deep frustration and disappointment that those with low mobility passports are consistently denied access to these vital global discussions. This doesn't just silence their perspectives. It further entrenches their marginalization, making the very concept of climate justice feel profoundly hollow and theoretical.
So it's a systemic barrier.
It's a systemic barrier that has been observed repeatedly at United Nations climate negotiations, where delegates from developing nations are frequently unable to participate due to arbitrary visa denials or prohibitively expensive travel. It's an exclusionary practice that undermines the spirit of global collaboration.
So it's not just an inconvenience, it's actually fundamentally undermining the very principles of climate justice, isn't it?
Indeed, and that's the core insight here. When we place this in a broader context, Yasin argues quite powerfully that without the direct, lived participation of those most acutely affected by climate change, discussions around climate justice remain performative rather than truly impactful or equitable.
Performative, yeah.
Their unique lived experiences, their intimate knowledge of local impacts, their distinct perspectives are absolutely essential for developing genuinely equitable, effective, and implementable climate policies.
Mm-hmm.
The persistent absence of these critical voices means that systemic barriers, such as these restrictive visa policies, are actively preventing the kind of comprehensive global collaboration needed to address the climate crisis holistically.
Right.
It spotlights an urgent and pressing need for genuine inclusivity in climate activism and policymaking, unequivocally ensuring that solutions are informed by the harsh realities faced by vulnerable populations rather than being debated in an insulated vacuum by those least affected.
Okay. Let's turn our attention now to a tragic and profoundly politically charged event that has sent shockwaves through the conservative movement in the U.S. The murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
Yes, a very high-profile incident.
Both RT and the BBC reported that Kirk was shot and killed at a college event in Orem, Utah. This horrific death has rapidly intensified political rhetoric and immediately led to passionate calls for greater accountability, particularly concerning the media.
What truly stands out here is how swiftly this tragic event became a focal point for much broader political discussions almost immediately after it occurred. U.S. President Donald Trump has publicly expressed support for what he calls a Charlie Kirk Act.
A Charlie Kirk Act, okay.
A proposed law aiming to hold media outlets, content creators, and social media platforms directly liable for false claims and unverified accusations that, in his view, incite violence or division.
So holding platforms liable.
The idea is to impose strict penalties against those disseminating misleading narratives. A video reposted by President Trump suggested reinstating the Smith-Mundt Act.
Ah, the Smith-Mundt Act. I've heard of that.
Right. But it's crucial for our listeners to understand that the Smith-Mundt Act remains fully intact and was never repealed. It was originally enacted to regulate U.S. media for foreign audiences, not domestic.
Okay, so a misunderstanding there.
A factual misunderstanding in that specific suggestion, yes. But the idea of greater media accountability is clearly being reinvoked. It highlights a strong desire to address perceived media bias and its role in public discourse.
Got it. And the suspect in Kirk's murder is reportedly not cooperating with authorities.
That's what the BBC reported, yes. Which, as the Utah governor pointed out, is definitely posing significant challenges for the ongoing investigation. The motive at this point remains incredibly uncertain. Meanwhile, a vigil and memorial for Kirk, and also Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee who was tragically killed in North Carolina, though the specific circumstances of her death aren't elaborated in our sources.
Okay.
This vigil in Vienna, Austria, was reportedly defaced by Antifa activists, provoking outrage from conservative figures globally.
More polarization.
Exactly. And this upcoming funeral for Kirk is even posing a major test for the Secret Service due to its extremely high-profile nature and the confirmed involvement of political figures like Vice President Vance, according to CNN.
Major security challenge.
A major security challenge, yes. This compels us to consider the incredibly complex intersection of political violence, media responsibility, and the justice system in our highly polarized world. The lack of cooperation from the suspect undeniably complicates the investigation into Kirk's murder, making it significantly harder to establish a definitive motive and bring the case to a swift, clear conclusion.
Right.
The reported defacing of the memorial in Vienna, regardless of the victim, profoundly highlights the intense polarization and animosity that has unfortunately become commonplace in current political discourse. The heightened security measures around the funeral underscore the very real-world dangers and threats associated with such a tense and charged environment. It is crucial, from an impartial perspective, to emphasize the absolute importance of objective investigation, upholding due process, and unequivocally condemning violence from any political quarter while navigating these intensely heightened political tensions. The Charlie Kirk Act proposal, whether legislatively feasible or not, clearly signals an ongoing, deeply contentious debate over free speech, media accountability, and the perceived role of inflammatory rhetoric in inciting real-world violence in the digital age. The challenge lies in balancing these fundamental democratic principles without stifling legitimate speech.
So we're left to grapple with that complex relationship between media rhetoric and real-world violence, the immense challenges of ensuring public safety at political events, and that ongoing fundamental debate over free speech versus accountability in the digital age. It's a conversation that's only getting more critical.
Absolutely. The proposed legislation itself reflects a genuine societal desire, it seems, to attribute responsibility for the broader climate of division and animosity that sometimes feels overwhelming. However, the exact mechanisms for defining and legally proving false claims that incite violence without inadvertently infringing upon constitutional protected free speech are incredibly complex and inherently contentious. It's a debate that truly touches on the fundamental principles of a democratic society. Hashtag tag 3.2, protests, sports, and international politics.
From the complexities of media and justice, let's look at how international politics are increasingly spilling over into what we once considered unexpected places, specifically the seemingly apolitical world of sports.
Right. Sports aren't immune.
The BBC and France 24 both reported that the final stage of the prestigious Vuelta a España cycling race in Madrid, Spain, was abruptly abandoned.
Abandoned.
After pro-Palestinian protesters entered the course, leading to clashes with police. Even the peloton, the main pack of cyclists, can't escape the political winds these days. It's another example of how global issues are permeating everyday life.
What truly stands out about this incident is the growing, undeniable trend of major sporting events becoming prominent platforms for political activism. This particular event highlights the immense dilemma faced by organizers in balancing the integrity and safety of their events with the fundamental right to protest.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
Sporting events, by their very nature, draw incredibly large crowds and international media attention, making them highly attractive stages for activists to raise awareness for their causes.
Right.
The abrupt abandonment of such a high-profile, internationally broadcast race powerfully underscores the capacity of these demonstrations to disrupt and draw attention. But it also compels us to ask crucial questions about the effectiveness of such tactics and their potential impact on public perception of the cause itself.
So, this compels us to consider several discussion points. The effectiveness of such protests, the impact on public perception, and just the increasing politicization of culture and sport generally.
The effectiveness of these protests is, without doubt, a subject of ongoing and intense debate. While they certainly grab headlines and force a conversation into the public sphere, they can also inadvertently alienate a segment of the public who view such disruptions as inappropriate or even disrespectful to sporting events.
Right, the backlash potential.
Exactly. This compels us to ask a crucial question about the fine line between effectively raising awareness and causing undue inconvenience or potentially even danger to participants and spectators. When we've placed this in a broader context, the increasing politicization of culture and sport reflects a broader societal trend where traditional boundaries between different spheres of life are blurring. Pressing global issues increasingly permeate local and cultural events.
Right.
It fundamentally challenges organizers and participants alike to navigate a complex landscape where their chosen field can unexpectedly become a high-visibility battleground for social and political commentary. Hashtag tag 3.3, UK anti-immigration protests and external influences.
Still in the realm of protests and politics, an RT article offered a particularly critical perspective on rising anti-immigration protests in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
The piece directly questioned their authenticity, highlighting claims of external funding, particularly from pro-Israel sources, through figures like Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson.
This suggests these movements might be promoting a narrative that specifically aligns anti-immigration sentiments with a broader pro-Israel political agenda. It certainly notes the complexity of truly understanding what fundamentally drives populist movements and the often opaque role of funding.
What truly stands out about this is this critical viewpoint presented in the source, RT, which suggests these movements are not purely organic grassroots efforts, but rather orchestrated or at least significantly influenced by external forces. The article specifically points to the alleged involvement of American-Israeli donors in funding figures like Tommy Robinson, implying that specific moral or social narratives are being strategically skewed to fit broader geopolitical objectives. Okay. It is important to present this as a viewpoint expressed within the source material without endorsing or refuting these specific claims, which are often subjects of intense public debate and scrutiny.
Understood. Neutral reporting.
Exactly. This highlights a critical lens through which to examine populist movements, questioning the origins of their funding, the transparency of their operations, and the alignment of their messaging with potential external interests.
And it also directly ties into a shifting political landscape in the UK, doesn't it?
Indeed. The article notes that UK Labour leader Keir Starmer has significantly adapted his positions on asylum seekers in response to mounting populist pressures and the rising support for right-wing parties like Nigel Farage's Reform UK.
Ah, so the pressure is working, in a sense.
In a sense, yes. When we place this in a broader context, it vividly illustrates how populist movements, regardless of their perceived authenticity, can exert profound influence on mainstream political parties, often pushing their agendas further into the mainstream to appeal to a wider electorate. This compels us to ask a crucial question about the intricate interplay of domestic politics with international interests, the significant impact of populism on national policy, and the ongoing challenges of media literacy in discerning authentic grassroots movements from those that might be subtly or overtly influenced by external funding and agendas.
Right. Critical thinking is essential.
It encourages a deeper, more critical thinking about the narratives we encounter in the news and the underlying forces actively shaping public opinion. Hashtag 3.4, pioneering labor rights for sex workers in Belgium.
Now, for a truly groundbreaking development that speaks volumes about societal shifts and the evolution of labor rights, France 24 reported that Belgium has enacted world-first legislation in 2024 granting sex workers full employment rights.
Full employment rights, that is groundbreaking.
A full suite of rights for a profession often relegated to the shadows, including things like maternity leave, health insurance, unemployment support, and pension rights. That's a monumental and unprecedented shift.
What truly stands out about this is the profound scope and human impact of this change. This pioneering law in Belgium provides sex workers with access to essential Social Security benefits previously only available to conventional employees. Advocacy groups have universally lauded it as a vital, transformative step towards empowerment, enhanced security, and reclaiming dignity for a historically marginalized and often exploited community.
Are there early results?
Early reports from Belgium already suggest significant improvements in the health, safety, and financial stability for these workers. It's allowing them to access crucial services and legal protections previously unattainable. This isn't just a policy change. It's a fundamental reimagining of a profession.
And this has broader implications far beyond Belgium, I imagine, potentially for the entire global discussion around sex work.
Absolutely. This compels us to ask a crucial question about how this groundbreaking model could influence other countries grappling with similar issues. When we place this in a broader context, the evolving perception of sexual labor is clearly shifting from a purely criminalized or morally condemned activity to one that can, and perhaps should, be viewed through the lens of fundamental labor rights and human rights.
Right.
This Belgian model could realistically serve as a compelling blueprint or a powerful precedent for other nations considering legalization and thoughtful regulation. It powerfully demonstrates the capacity of progressive policy to uplift marginalized communities, substantially enhance their safety and working conditions, and provide them with the same basic protections afforded to other workers.
So a potential model for others.
It fundamentally reflects a growing international debate about human rights, economic justice, and the nuanced complexities of decriminalization or legalization of sex work, with Belgium now very much at the forefront of this transformative approach.
Finally, in the United Kingdom, we're seeing persistent questions about political ethics that highlight enduring issues of vetting and public trust. The BBC reported that the UK Prime Minister addressed the controversial appointment of Lord Mandelson as US Ambassador. He stated unequivocally that he would not have made the appointment if he had been fully aware of Mandelson's ties to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. That's quite an admission.
It really is. It just goes to show how the persistent dark shadow of the Epstein scandal continues to linger across various sectors of power and influence.
What truly stands out here is the Prime Minister's admission itself. It profoundly highlights significant concerns about ethical standards in high-level political appointments and the absolutely critical importance of thorough, unassailable vetting processes within government.
Right, the vetting failed somewhere.
Or at least raises questions about it. When we place this in a broader context, public trust in government officials is paramount for democratic legitimacy. Any perceived lapse in due diligence, especially involving an individual with ties to such a notorious figure as Epstein, can severely erode that trust and lead to widespread cynicism. This isn't merely a political gaffe. It touches on the very fabric of public confidence.
So this is more than just about one singular appointment. It's about broader transparency and accountability in government, isn't it?
Precisely. This compels us to ask a crucial question about the adequacy and rigor of existing vetting procedures for high-level political positions, particularly those involving international representation where national reputation is at stake. It fuels broader, vital debates about transparency and accountability in political leadership and the persistent, justified demand from the public for greater diligence, integrity, and responsibility in such appointments. The scandal serves as a stark and enduring reminder of the intense scrutiny public figures face and the potential for past associations, even seemingly indirect ones, to profoundly impact present credibility, public confidence in political institutions, and a government's moral authority.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to the dynamic world of economic currents and how political figures can, sometimes with just a single comment, instantly move global markets.
Always fascinating to watch.
CNBC reported that U.S. stock markets, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ Composite, all saw a noticeable uptick after positive comments from U.S. President Donald Trump regarding ongoing trade negotiations with China.
The China trade talks.
Tesla's stock, notably, surged dramatically. It really illustrates how quickly markets react to even hints of positive news or perceived progress from high-profile political figures, particularly when it comes to major economic partners.
What truly stands out here is the immediate and profound market sensitivity to geopolitical developments and high-level political rhetoric. The positive sentiment generated around U.S.-China trade talks, which have historically caused significant market volatility and uncertainty, signals renewed investor optimism for stability. The New York Times also reported that the United States and China recently concluded talks establishing a framework for the potential sale of TikTok.
The TikTok saga continues.
Indeed, specifically addressing critical data security and Chinese ownership concerns. Further high-stakes talks between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are now expected to follow. This represents an incredibly complex negotiation, balancing national security concerns, profound business interests, and the pervasive technological influence of global platforms. The market responding positively to these initial signs of de-escalation and potential resolution.
And President Trump also floated a pretty significant and controversial change to how corporations report their earnings.
Yes, the quarterly reporting issue.
Axios reported that he suggested public companies should no longer be required to report earnings quarterly, arguing it would significantly reduce pressure on management and allow them to focus more effectively on long-term growth and strategic planning.
This compels us to ask a crucial question about corporate governance, market transparency, and that balance between short-term demands and long-term vision.
Okay, what are the arguments?
For the pro-argument, as articulated by the president's proposal, is that it would fundamentally allow companies to prioritize long-term strategic goals and innovation, rather than being excessively driven by short-term quarterly results, which can sometimes lead to undesirable decisions like cutting R&D for immediate profit.
Okay, the long-term view.
But the compelling con argument is that it would significantly reduce transparency for investors, potentially undermining investor confidence, particularly for smaller individual investors who rely on that consistent data, and making it considerably harder for the market to accurately and fairly value companies.
So less information for investors.
Potentially, yes. When we place this in a broader context, it reflects an ongoing, deeply entrenched debate about the delicate balance between necessary regulation and market freedom, and the profound impact of presidential statements on broader economic activity and established corporate practices. Such a change could fundamentally alter how financial disclosure and corporate accountability are approached in the United States.
So we're navigating that delicate balance between regulation and market freedom and clearly seeing how presidential statements can significantly impact economic activity and even the fundamental structure of corporate governance.
It's a powerful influence. Hashtag 4.2, Elon Musk's Tesla investment.
Speaking of influential figures and market movements, Elon Musk certainly knows how to make headlines, both for his companies and for his personal actions.
He does indeed.
The New York Times reported that he recently purchased approximately $1 billion worth of Tesla stock.
$1 billion?
Acquiring around 2.5 million shares, all amidst the company board's very public defense of his substantial executive compensation package.
Right. The timing is interesting.
That's not just buying a few shares. That's a very clear, very loud statement. It certainly feels like one.
What truly stands out here is that this significant personal investment is viewed not only as a strategic move to consolidate his already considerable control over the electric vehicle company, but also as a powerful and highly visible expression of his unwavering confidence in Tesla's future trajectory. When we place this in a broader context, such a bold, personal financial commitment from a visionary leader signals his steadfast dedication.
Right, putting skin in the game.
Exactly, putting his money where his mouth is. This can have a strong psychological and positive impact on the market, often leading to a favorable response from investors.
And the market definitely responded positively, it seems.
Indeed, Tesla shares saw a noticeable upward trend in pre-market trading immediately following the announcement, reflecting that bolstered investor sentiment. This compels us to ask a crucial question about the immense influence of individual high-profile figures like Musk on market trends and the ongoing, often contentious discussions about executive pay versus broader shareholder interests.
Yeah, the pay package debate.
Exactly. His substantial purchase could undoubtedly bolster investor confidence and reinforce the company's valuation, but it also reignites public and internal debates about the dynamics of corporate leadership, the scrutiny that executive compensation packages often face, and the perennial question of alignment between management and shareholder value. It's a complex interplay of personal influence, corporate strategy, and market perception that plays out in very public ways. Hashtag 4.3. Russia's move to a 4-day workweek.
Here's a truly fascinating societal and economic shift that could have global implications. Russia is reportedly moving towards a 4-day workweek.
The 4-day week concept, yes, gaining traction globally.
RT quoted Yaroslav Nilov, who heads the State Duma Committee on Labor, announcing a gradual transition to this model, a concept that's been discussed in Russia since as far back as 2019. I'm genuinely curious about the implications for national productivity and, of course, the ever-important work-life balance for millions of people.
What truly stands out about this proposed change is that it's clearly not envisioned as a uniform overnight shift across all sectors. Nilov specifically emphasized that the transition will be decidedly gradual.
Okay, gradual.
And will not apply to all industries, with essential services likely being explicitly excluded to maintain critical functions. The explicit goal is for it to happen organically, ensuring it does not harm incomes for workers or the overall viability of businesses.
So cautious.
A cautious approach, yes. It reflects the ongoing discussions that have been taking place since former Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev first publicly suggested the idea back in 2019. It's a recognition of the complexities involved in such a large-scale societal and economic restructuring.
So a gradual shift, but how is public opinion shaping this, and what are the internal challenges?
Public opinion, as is often the case with such significant societal changes, is decidedly mixed. A recent survey indicated that over half of Russians expressed support for a 4-day week, envisioning potential benefits for personal well-being and an improved work-life balance. However, many employers are expressing significant resistance to the change.
Why the resistance?
Primarily due to very real concerns about potential staff shortages, maintaining current levels of productivity, and the logistical challenges of restructuring work schedules.
Right.
When we place this in a broader context, this mirrors global discussions and trials on shorter work weeks happening in many countries. The economic and social factors influencing its feasibility are critically examined everywhere. Nations experimenting with this model face similar challenges, balancing employee well-being and job satisfaction with maintaining economic output and navigating the practicalities of implementation, especially across diverse industrial sectors. This compels us to ask a crucial question about what valuable lessons other countries, which are also considering or trialing shorter work weeks, might draw from Russia's cautious, organic experiment as it unfolds. It could offer important insights into the real-world trade-offs.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to some truly sobering stories from the world of crime and justice, which often reflect much deeper societal issues and sometimes systemic failures.
Yes, fortunately, yes.
The South China Morning Post reported a profoundly tragic and disturbing case in the United Kingdom. Constance Martin, described as a British aristocrat, and Mark Gordon were sentenced to 14 years for the gross negligence manslaughter of their infant daughter.
Gross negligence manslaughter, a serious charge.
Very. And the core of this immense tragedy, the couple deliberately chose to live off-grid during Martin's pregnancy to actively evade social services.
Evade social services. Why?
Because their 4 previous children had already been taken into care due to concerns. It's just a cascade of profoundly sad, desperate, and ultimately outrageous decisions. evidence.
What truly stands out about this case is the extreme and desperate lengths the couple went to. Spending weeks camping in freezing, remote conditions, all to avoid authorities and, by extension, the child protection system. This misguided evasion led to a harrowing nationwide manhunt after their abandoned car was found with evidence related to the baby's birth, sparking public alarm.
Right, it was a huge news story.
It was. The presiding judge unequivocally condemned their actions as selfish, highlighting that they demonstrably prioritized avoiding legal repercussions over the fundamental welfare and very survival of their vulnerable baby. They also faced additional charges of child cruelty and perverting the course of justice. This case indeed tragically highlights significant societal failure points, not just in the couple's actions, but perhaps in the system's ability to intervene effectively earlier.
It certainly does, and it raises so many difficult questions. So what are the key discussion points here? The severe consequences of child neglect, the inherent challenges faced by social services, and the broader, more uncomfortable discussion about parental responsibility and ultimate accountability.
This compels us to ask a crucial question about the critical, often difficult role of child protective services. Their prior intervention in the lives of the couple's previous 4 children clearly indicates a persistent history of concern and a pattern of neglect.
Right.
The tragic outcome here profoundly underscores the severe consequences when individuals take such extreme measures to evade these authorities, prioritizing personal desires and perceived autonomy over the fundamental welfare of a vulnerable child who is entirely dependent on them. When we place this in a broader context, it prompts a crucial societal discussion about the absolute nature of parental responsibility, the accountability of caregivers, and the often difficult, delicate balance between individual rights and the state's paramount duty to protect children from severe neglect and harm. It also acutely highlights the immense and often thankless challenges faced by social services in accurately identifying, effectively monitoring, and intervening appropriately in such complex and high-risk cases.
Moving to a different kind of tragic incident that raises questions about human behavior under pressure, India Today reported on a fatal BMW crash in Delhi, India, that tragically killed a finance ministry official named Navjot Singh. The driver, Gaganpreet Kaur, who is accused in the crash, then transported the victim an astonishing 19 kilometers away to a different hospital.
19 kilometers, that's a long way in an emergency.
A very long way. Citing pure panic and unfamiliarity with closer medical facilities, it really makes you question the decision-making in that moment. Every minute counts, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. This compels us to ask a crucial question about emergency protocols, driver responsibility, and the psychology of decision-making under duress.
Right, the panic factor.
Kaur's explanation of immediate panic and genuine unfamiliarity with closer facilities highlights a critical issue regarding immediate, informed emergency response. In a life-threatening situation like this, the first few minutes are often absolutely crucial for a victim's survival. Transporting an injured person such a significant distance, when closer medical facilities might exist, questions not only individual decision-making under immense duress, but also broader public awareness about local emergency resources and established protocols for accident response. This is a profound moment where human instinct can tragically override optimal action.
So this incident is really highlighting issues far beyond just the mechanics of the crash itself, isn't it? It's about systemic awareness, maybe.
Absolutely, and that's the core insight here. When we place this in a broader context, this incident raises critically important questions about driver responsibility, the universal need for clear emergency protocols, and the necessity of widespread public awareness campaigns regarding nearby medical facilities. It delves deeply into the psychological impact of emergencies on decision-making, how intense panic can profoundly override logical thought and optimal action, and the absolute necessity of public education on what immediate steps to take in the direct aftermath of a serious accident. The incident ultimately underscores the critical importance of comprehensive road safety education, thorough driver preparedness for emergencies, and robust accountability in critical situations, all aiming to prevent similar tragic outcomes in the future by empowering individuals with knowledge and clear procedures.
And finally, a story that sounds like it's ripped straight out of a Netflix documentary, because it actually is.
Ah, yes, that one.
RT reported that Simon Leviev, famously known as the Tinder Swindler from the hugely popular Netflix documentary, was arrested in Georgia, the country in Eastern Europe, following an Interpol warrant for a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme.
So he's been caught again.
Looks like his luxurious lifestyle finally caught up to him again. It seems hard to keep track.
What truly stands out here is the sheer audacity and the sophisticated scale of his pervasive scheme. Lviv systematically scammed numerous women he met on the dating app Tinder by meticulously posing as the son of a wealthy diamond businessman. He would lure them with a lavish, aspirational lifestyle before soliciting loans for fabricated emergencies.
Right, the classic scam setup.
Which he, of course, never repaid, ultimately defrauding victims of approximately $10 million globally, according to reports. His recent arrest, particularly after being able to travel openly for a period, compels us to ask crucial questions about the ease of international travel for individuals with such a documented history of fraud and evasion.
Yeah, how does that happen?
He has a documented history of forgery and theft across multiple jurisdictions and now faces a fresh wave of new lawsuits.
This definitely puts a spotlight on the ongoing and significant risks in online dating, doesn't it? It's a perennial warning for users.
It absolutely does, and that's the core insight here. When we place this in a broader context, this case serves as a stark and enduring reminder of the persistent and evolving risks associated with online dating and the increasingly sophisticated financial fraud tactics employed by professional con artists. It vividly highlights the insidious psychological manipulation used to build a deep sense of trust and dependency before ruthlessly exploiting victims financially.
Right.
This compels us to ask crucial questions about the responsibility of dating platforms themselves to protect their users, and the ongoing immense challenges faced by international law enforcement in effectively combating complex cross-border financial crimes.
Yeah.
The case fundamentally underscores the critical importance of vigilance, healthy skepticism, and thorough vetting in all online interactions, and the absolute necessity for individuals to be extremely cautious, even suspicious, when financial requests or demands arise in any online or nascent relationship. #outro.
Wow, what an extensive journey this has been today. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground, haven't we?
We certainly have. A lot happened this week.
From the stark realities of humanitarian crises unfolding in Haiti and South Sudan to the intense geopolitical maneuvering in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, we've explored the profound ethical dilemmas posed by new technologies like artificial intelligence in Pennsylvania, examined the complex ecological threats to our vital coral reefs, and delved into the crucial ongoing fight for true climate justice globally.
Right.
And of course, we've touched upon the ongoing struggles for justice and accountability, both criminal and political, that continue to shape our societies.
And what becomes strikingly clear when you reflect on all these seemingly disparate global events is their deep and often unexpected interconnectedness.
Yeah, it all links up.
Understanding the economic pressures in one region can profoundly shed light on political instability in another. Just as rapid technological advancements can inadvertently create unforeseen environmental challenges or dramatically impact established societal norms, each story, no matter how local or specific it may seem, undeniably contributes to a much larger, intricate global tapestry, reinforcing the idea that we are all navigating this incredibly complex world together, and understanding these threads is crucial.
So as we grapple with these complex global challenges, here's a thought for you, our listeners. Where do you see the greatest potential for that divergent meta-thinking we talked about earlier to truly make a transformative difference in the year ahead?
Good question.
Whether it's in the delicate sphere of diplomacy, the rapidly evolving landscape of technology, or simply in how we approach the myriad challenges and opportunities in our daily lives, we truly encourage you to reflect on these stories, discuss them with others if you can, and continue your own deep dives into these crucial topics. Your curiosity and engagement are precisely what make these conversations so valuable.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world's most pressing news. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those important questions.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.